Keenan Garber is unsurprisingly the biggest riser in this edition of the Big Board. Derek Young, KSO. The football big board for Kansas State recruiting from the KSO staff returns as the summer camp portion of the calendar is almost upon us and the evaluation period winds down. Disclaimer, there's no promises of this being 100% accurate in terms of order. It is our best educated guess based on information we are privy to, resources we are privy to, understanding the current roster, and the experience we have covering recruiting. 1. Jaden Russell. He's still the top target regardless of position or class, in my opinion. At least, that is how K-State has pursued him. The Wildcats have chased him for at least 2 years. Last week, 1. 2. Raymander Stevenson. Kansas State did end up offering a junior college back in Stevenson, and I think their chances of landing him are pretty good at this point. We felt for a while that a junior college running back made sense with how thin the position will be after the 2018 regular season. Last week, 3. Luke Weertz. I believe the linebacker will be a K-State commit by June 10th, or in the days thereafter. Last week, 2. 4. Trevor Stang. Just like Weertz, I think he jumps into the commit column for the Wildcats in June. Last week, 3. 5. Keenan Garber. After the offer from K-State came that we had been anticipating for a while, this is an open and shut case. Garber will play in purple. Last week, 14. 6. Chris Herron. Kansas State needs to come to an agreement and figure out the dates they'll be hosting kids for visits this summer, because Herron is ready to take trips and wants to finish his recruitment in the near future. An Indiana official visit has already been set. Last week, 5. 7. Edinosa Rubin. Schools like Ohio State and Notre Dame won't end up having the space for him. Georgia and Alabama will likely want him to camp for a spot. Some of those offers are a bit of fluff. His recruitment hasn't really begun. Kansas State is still in the picture, certainly. Don't let anyone tell you different. Last week, 6. 8. Ishmael Burdine. It was no surprise when the Wildcats made his cut to 10. Missouri, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt and Tennessee will put up a fight, but I think it is one that K-State can still win. Last week, 4. 9. Breon Fuller. The four-star receiver from South Florida has been shunned a bit by the in-state schools after they had great interest initially. Where does that leave things now? A bit in limbo, for sure. And that could give K-State an opening. Last week, 20. 10. Turner Corcoran. He's still just a sophomore and will be a junior in the fall. Despite all that, the in-state talent has an offer and will be a fixture in the top 10 for the foreseeable future already, because he'll be the most important target in the class of 2020. Last week, 8. 11. Miles Dickens. He's the Florida prospect with an offer that has already visited, and that is substantial of course. It's been a bit quiet ever since, and they will only take one defensive end in all likelihood, 2 if it is the right 2. Last week, 7. 12. Nikola Ognjenovic. A few tight end offers have been sent out. On paper, it doesn't appear to be a position of need at all for Kansas State, but it makes sense to not want to go consecutive years without signing one. If they do, the Florida native may give them the best chances. Last week, 13. Breece Hall. K-State is nowhere close to being in a favorable position, but the longer it goes, the better for Bill Snyder and company. Last week, 11. 14. Justin Dinka. The summer will tell us a lot about the direction his recruitment will go in, but I imagine it being a Big 12 battle between schools such as Kansas State, Texas Tech and Baylor. Last week, 12-15, Marco Reed, he would be higher, but I think K-State probably values a few other defensive backs higher, and he probably favors the Red Raiders more at this point. Last week, 16, Daniel Jackson, he's just another class of 2020 recruit in the Sunflower State that already holds a Kansas State offer. It is early, but it is already shaping up to be one that gets away from the Wildcats. Last week, 13-17, Winston Wright, the visits to West Virginia and Boston College have been set. The visit to Kansas State has not. Like in the case of Chris Herren and others, they need to figure out dates and get him on campus or he'll be gone soon. Last week, 18, Jordan Townsend. Townsend is dropping down this list rapidly because there's been little movement in a positive direction between the two sides. In fact, it has been the opposite. He didn't end up visiting in the spring, and they've offered and chased other prospects a bit harder in the meantime. Last week, 10-19, Zach Marcaselli. Kansas State has an offer out to the Oklahoma linebacker. Makes sense to chase this position and someone from this part of the country, but the competition from Arkansas may be too much to overcome. Last week, 20, Marcus Hicks. Although there is plenty to dismiss him altogether, removing the top player in Kansas at this juncture still would seem premature. It is awfully grim, but never say never with so much time remaining in the recruiting cycle. Last week, 19,